Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Aging with Attitude on Channel 21, serving the Charlotte and surrounding areas. My name is Phil Koch. I'll be the host this evening. Tonight we have Pete Brunnick.
That's great.
Pete is President and CEO of Hospice and Palliative Care of Charlotte. Welcome, Pete.
Phil, thank you so much. Always great to be here.
Good, good. We'd like to hear, tell us a little bit more about Hospice and Palliative Care and what Hospice and Palliative Care does.
Okay. First of all, let me talk a little bit about the organization itself. We just celebrated our 36th birthday back in March. Hospice and Palliative Care Charlotte region is a true community-based organization. Our genesis really goes back to about 1977 when a group of volunteers in this community really wanted to introduce the concept of hospice to Charlotte. And they began gathering, and really from a blank canvas created this organization, built the infrastructure, the policies, procedures to really deliver hospice in this community. Hospice at that time was fairly new. Hospice in the United States only was introduced in 1974. So the community group came together and we became incorporated in March 8th of 1978. And in 1979, in November of 79, we were the second hospice in this state to ever accept a patient. And it's an interesting growth of hospice services in our state, where in 1979, I think in total across the whole state only about 25 patients were served. That number now is approaching 50,000 each year served by hospice services. Wow. Hospice and Palliative Care Charlotte region was the first hospice in the state to become Medicare certified, and now is the largest not-for-profit freestanding hospice south of Washington, D.C. and north of Jacksonville, Florida. So it's been a great success story for our organization. I think it speaks to several things. I think it speaks to the support of this community for hospice and palliative care services, support of this organization, and also speaks, I think, to the excellence in services that we provide.
Absolutely. Wow, 1978. That's
right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a great journey.
Well, tell me more about the type of hospice services that are out there as part of Hospice and Palliative Care of Charlotte.
Sure.
And also, if you could, because I hear the misunderstanding sometimes about palliative care, which is a great benefit that Hospice and Palliative Care offers.
Right. Well, let me just kind of describe what hospice services
Please.
are. Hospice, by definition, is a form of health care delivered to those individuals who have a prognosis, been identified as terminal with a prognosis of 6 months or less if the disease follows its normal course.
Okay.
So that means that a person may be under care for 6 months, they could be under care for a year, because prognosticating the trajectory of a terminal disease is very difficult. So it's oftentimes a person may come under care and you just have to evaluate things as they go. Our role in hospice care is to provide comfort care. In other words, when a person elects hospice care, they understand that the disease cannot be reversed, and therefore they're seeking to manage the disease and seeking comfort and symptom management versus curative.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't mean they can't continue to get radiation. It doesn't mean they can't get chemotherapy, because oftentimes our patients do receive those types of treatment, but it is meant and directed more toward the palliation or comfort of the patient and managing those symptoms so they can live life toward their fullest. The one thing that we really like to always communicate about hospice care is often the perception is, if I elect hospice care, I'm giving up. It means that nothing else can be done. Really, what we believe hospice care does is allows an individual to live life to their fullest in their final days. Yeah. By feeling better, by managing the pain and symptoms, you can actually sometimes extend life. You can do things perhaps that if you were under a more aggressive treatment and dealing with the side effects you couldn't do. So we're all about living life to the fullest to the very end. And I think that's the fundamental message of hospice is about living. Yeah. Because you have a terminal illness doesn't mean you don't live. And so that is the core of what we do, but underneath that core is something called palliative care, and palliation is just that, providing comfort. And the distinguishing element of palliative versus hospice care is that hospice comes with that terminal diagnosis and the trajectory or prognosis of life of about 6 months. Palliative is much broader than that. Yeah. And so through our palliative care program, we deal with people who have chronic illnesses. It could be a COPD, congestive heart failure, it could be dementia, it could be a lot of things that we deal with. And there again, it's about dealing with the symptoms that those not terminal in those cases, but chronic illnesses produce, how to manage them better, and also how to deal with goal planning, for instance.
Right.
You may be seeing the nephrologist, the cardiologist, the neurologist. What does all that mean? What's all really happening with the individual? So we're able to work with individuals, sit down with them and say, kind of explain, this is all what's happening with you, and let's talk about where do we go from here. So it's a tremendous service, and I think so many people benefit from it.
Oh, I'm a firm believer in it. I own, probably aware, I own a home care company, and a lot of our clients utilize the service. I think it's one of the best services that are out there, and I think hospice
Well, thank you.
care is fantastic. So,
well, we work very hard, and certainly your patients, as they go through their disease process, ultimately may end up with us.
tell me the different types of positions within hospice and palliative care that if Mrs. Smith or whoever the patient might be might actually see or be involved with within the hospice family.
Sure. What makes hospice care unique is it's a team approach. It's a very holistic approach, and that's very different than typical health care, which can be oftentimes fragmented. Through our interdisciplinary team, each patient is treated by a nurse, social worker, in-home aide, a chaplain, a physician, and oftentimes a part of that is a volunteer. And so on Monday or Wednesday, they may see the nurse. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday, they may see the in-home aide.
Right.
At least once, maybe twice a month, they'll see the social worker who's dealing more with the psychosocial elements of the disease. Then there's the physician involvement. There's a physician involvement in the front end, and periodically interaction with the physicians as they evaluate the disease and making sure that the patient is still eligible for the hospice benefit. So, and this team approach is unique in that you have different sets of eyes who work with the patients, and then they each week meet and discuss, again, all the elements of the patient care. So again, it's multidimensional. It is a holistic form of care, and that you are literally treated by a team of people,
right,
which makes it very unique and in many respects very contemporary.
A care group.
Exactly.
Come together to meet. What is the, you hear, I get this question a lot. If Mrs. Smith has a family physician she's used all the time, hospice comes in and helps, can the family physician still be involved or no?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the patient choice, and often the physician decision of the physician. Sometimes the attending physician may relinquish that control and give it to the hospice physician to be the attending. It's really their decision. One thing about hospice care is we like to make sure the patient and their families understand they're the patient. They're directing the care. We're there to honor their wishes.
Right.
If they want to keep their physician to be the lead, they certainly have that prerogative. It's not for us to come in, and that's I think the really unique thing and special thing about us is we are focused on the person. We're not here to tell them how they should be treated.
Right.
We're there to honor their wishes and make sure that their last element of their life journey is really how they want it to be.
Right. Also, if I may say, the family, I mean, there's family that surround the patients that you're not treating, but is there not, there's some counseling involved? Yeah?
Certainly. You know, the thing is, whether we're a hospice patient or we're just dealing with the illness, it just doesn't impact the individual who's dealing with the illness. It impacts everyone around them.
Right.
And we definitely work to include the whole family unit, whatever that family unit may be,
right,
as a part of the care plan. So they understand not only what we're doing, but what's happening behind the scenes and where they're going from there. I think that's one thing, I think when patients or their families deal with hospice care, the thing they appreciate the most is that we help them, we're with them along the journey.
Right.
And we can help describe, this is what's happening and this is what's going to happen. And we hear it all the time that you told me what was going to happen and I saw it happen just as you described it.
Wow.
And I think that's really unique about what we do. And you know, there isn't an instructional manual on the dying process.
Right.
And most people who are dealing with a dying family member really don't know what to expect. And it's obvious that when you are dealing with the unexpected and the unknown, there's a lot of anxiety attached to that. And our ability to really be there with people, and I think the key word is with them, and walk through that journey with them, and helping them understand this is what's happening,
right,
and preparing them for what's happening, and really so they have some sense of, I'm not here alone dealing with this. And I think that's where our value really is with our patients and their families. They know there's somebody there with them.
Right. Not just the physical needs, which you help with, but the emotional needs, which is equally a part of that, right?
Absolutely. Again, the journey into the unknown, dealing with the symptoms and issues related to the terminal illness, but also we call it psychosocial, the emotional elements of it, of dealing with the grief process. And the grief process starts well before the actual death is incurred. And people are going through a grief process. They need somebody there with them. And we can provide that support and being able to just talk it through.
Right.
And the thing that's unique about hospice care is once the patient has passed away, we still stay with the families for another year.
Wow.
And so if they need to talk about their grief reaction or how they're dealing with it, we can be there with them, and we provide that support. It bothers me considerably when I think about people who go through a death experience without that support, because suddenly a family member is no longer there, and you have that emptiness. Well, who's there to kind of guide you and walk with you through that journey? Right. And that's what we do. So I think the people that experience hospice services value that support after the death as much as anything, and it's from that support that they feel so they're adamant about the value that we provide, and the hospice experience really is unique.
Right, right, sure is. And I'm going to go back a little bit to palliative care, because not all hospices provide palliative care.
They really don't. There's a lot of reasons they don't. A, it's complicated. There's not a great way that it's paid for.
Yeah.
And most palliative care programs are not self-funded. They need some other source of funding, whether it's charitable donations or grants or whatever, to support them. Because of the nature, oftentimes it literally is, in some cases, a physician going to a house. Physicians don't make house visits for reasons these days. It's very expensive, but palliative care is often provided in a private residence, assisted living, or in a nursing home.
Okay.
So again, a lot of folks just don't deliver the care. We see it as an important part of what we do. One is it's a needed service. People need to understand about planning goals of care. They need to understand advanced care directives. They need to understand what a DNR is, or what the most form is. And these are all related to, again, advanced care planning, whether it means what treatments you wish, versus also in addition to durable powers of attorney, this type of thing. So we're with them and working through all these aspects of the chronic illness, knowing that ultimately these chronic illnesses result in, most cases, a terminal prognosis and ultimate death. So through our palliative care program, we can really provide a lot of valued health care. And again, it's the distinguishing mark between palliative and hospice care is the palliative patient is not 6 months from death.
Right.
They could be 2, 3, 5 years from death.
Right.
But if they have, again, a COPD or CHF, congestive heart failure, they are not curative. Once you have it, it doesn't get reversed.
Right.
You just live with it. And what we're helping people do is live with these advanced chronic illnesses.
I may say, I see this a lot myself. Families who sometimes won't agree to having hospice come in because they feel that the moment they make that decision, death is coming imminently.
Right.
Whereas in reality, if they had them come in early, it would make so many things so much easier. And I've seen people regret it for not making those phone calls earlier. Not to mention the fact that it's possible, although not frequent, that somebody can actually be discharged from hospice. Is that not correct?
That is true.
Yeah.
The common myth and perception is hospice means the end is near and I'm giving up. Mm-hmm. And quite the opposite is true. we have patients that come under care, and they may stay with us a month, they may stay with us a year, or more, because they stabilize. And we have to be very careful about, again, with eligibility issues there. But again, if we have a success story where people actually get discharged from hospice because, guess what, you're really not dying. That's okay. Hospice can help people manage an illness better, and oftentimes with the right treatment in place, they actually have they rally, so to speak. So, you know, hospice, you're never too early asking hospice to come in, if nothing else, for an evaluation. We rarely have any, I don't know of a single case where somebody has said, we called you too early.
Right.
We hear it all the time, we called you too late. We wish you had, had we known all the services you could provide, the support that you could give us, we would have called earlier. We didn't understand, and we thought if we bring you in, it means, you know, just saying the word death means I'm going to die. But that's just not the case at all. And statistically, nationally, the average person is under care for hospice for 72 days.
Okay.
On average. In our hospice, that number is slightly higher than that. It really depends geographically where you are and the type of patients you're serving. But it's not unusual at all for a patient to exceed the 6-month prognosis number in terms of length of stay under hospice care. So we always urge people, even if you're not certain about hospice care, go ahead and ask, learn more about it, ask for an evaluation, talk to your physician about hospice care, and see if it's appropriate. If nothing else, learn more about it, and understand that there's a good chance that once hospice is involved, you may live longer as opposed to having a shortened life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, if I may say, the counseling that you guys offer is not just for somebody who's passed away, but if somebody is diagnosed with a terminal disease or a palliative disease condition, the family members and the individuals themselves are going through a very traumatic and stressful time, and the counseling can really help in that area.
Certainly. You know, having been, if you're an individual and you've been given a terminal diagnosis, that alone is an emotional setback. And so you're exactly right that we can get in with those patients and help them understand that, yes, there's a good chance that in 6 months you will die. However, you still have a life to live, and let's see what we can do about making that life experience the best it can be. And it, obviously, you know, you can have depression, other things come into play when a person is dealing with that, and also with the emotional stress on the family. But again, that's how we can come in and really be helpful. You know, one thing is that we all have to recognize that, you know, we will die. That's always, I do a seminar, and one of the first things I always ask the audience is there anyone here that's immortal? Because if you are, don't stick around for this presentation, because it's a complete waste of your time. But the recognition is we all die, and we need to be talking about it. It's not something that's taboo.
Right. So if you could walk me through briefly, if Mrs. Smith calls up, or the family of Mrs. Smith, and needs care, what is step 1, step 2 through the hospice palliative care? Well,
oftentimes we will gather information, we will ask them who their physician is, because ultimately the physician has to give the order. Hospice is a little bit different than many other services, as you can't just decide, hey, I'd like to have a hospice. There has to be a physician that writes an order for hospice. So we work with the patient and the family to get them in contact with the family physician and discuss, have the hospice discussion, and if the physician agrees, they will write the order.
Not to interrupt, sorry, but does it have to be the primary care physician, or could it be the internist at the hospital?
It could be, yes, yes. We just need a physician's order. Again, you just can't come under hospice care because you think you need hospice care. A physician needs to write the order to say that you're appropriate for hospice care. Then we will come out and do an evaluation. Now, sometimes a physician might think you're hospice eligible. We go out there and look at different things and decide that for various reasons you may not be eligible for hospice care. Sometimes it's a person may be pursuing aggressive treatments, and if you are, that's something that is not compatible with hospice care. So we have to work through that, but at least we can start having the conversation, start describing the services, and develop that better understanding of what hospice can do for you.
Okay, perfect. And is there a geographical region that the group covers?
Well, Hospice Palliative Care Charlotte region operates within about a 60-mile radius of Charlotte. We have various offices. We have 6 locations in Mecklenburg County and a location in Lincoln County. So we try to operate in what we consider a reasonable distance because of the kind of care that we're delivering.
Right.
Given all the elements to it, if a patient's geographically too distant from our office, we really cannot provide the type of care. Now, some organizations really stretch their geographic reach. We don't believe that's in the best interest of the patient, and we are about excellence in patient care. We will not compromise our excellence in patient care to develop a geographic reach. We will do the right thing for our patients, and if it isn't the best in care possible, we just don't treat the patient.
And how many patients, say annually, roughly, would hospice and palliative care service?
Last year we admitted to hospice care just over 3,000 patients.
Wow.
And we served about 3,500 patients in total.
Okay.
So on any given day, we have close to 700 patients under hospice care and another 400 to 500 patients under palliative care. That's in, again, the greater Charlotte region.
So if you 3,000 versus 3,500, the ones that were admitted, is it the 500 or the palliative?
They may have already been under care, and sometimes they can be admitted twice.
Oh,
so the 3,000 is a unique, is not a duplicative number, but the person can come under care, be discharged, and come back under care later in the year. So that's why you get, when you look at the patient served number, a little bit different than an admission number.
Okay, okay. And what, tell me more about how people pay for hospice services.
Well, hospice services are paid generally through either Medicare, Medicaid, insurances. Statistically, nationally, about 84% of those who receive hospice care are Medicare eligible.
Okay.
Certainly commercial insurances will pay for it, but given that we are a charitable organization, we will give care to people who have no insurance or simply are truly indigent.
Right.
We don't turn people away. That's part of our mission, our service to our community, that we believe every citizen in our community deserves a death with dignity and pain-free, and that we will turn no one away just simply because they lack the ability to pay.
Okay. Okay. Does Medicaid or CAP pay for that type of care?
They can. In some cases, we have patients that aren't eligible for Medicaid or one of the CAP programs, and so they basically are truly indigent, and we serve them in our hospice facilities. We have, of course, the Huntersville facility. We have this facility at Southminster in the south of Mecklenburg County, and we have served patients for inpatient hospice care who had no payment source whatsoever.
Right. So yeah, let's talk about that. So you have tell us about your permanent fixed communities that you have under hospice and palliative care.
And if I can just step back a second,
sure, yeah.
About 97% of patients receive hospice care outside of a inpatient type facility, meaning hospital or hospice inpatient unit.
Okay.
They serve about half our patients are in a private residence, their home, assisted living, nursing home, and about 3% of our patients receive care in a hospice inpatient unit or the hospital. Now we have our Huntersville Levine-Dixon Hospice House in Huntersville, which is 16 beds, and then we have our Southminster Levine-Dixon Hospice House Southminster, which has 10 beds. It's right off Park Road. One's up right off exit 23 on 77.
Okay.
So, and these are for those patients who have such acute symptoms that we cannot effectively manage them in the home setting, and so we put them in a setting where they're getting 24-hour nursing care. It's a very small ratio. Each nurse takes care of 5 patients.
Wow.
So it's a very intense level of care, a very high level of service, but we provide everything there in the facility.
And the Southminster, do you have to be a patient or a resident of Southminster?
No, those are public beds, and so anyone in our community who needs hospice inpatient services can receive them at Southminster.
Well, I must say, I personally have been to the house in Huntersville, and it is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. So if you ever have the chance, and if that is an option within your decision criteria, then you should definitely take a look at it, because I'm very, very impressive.
Well, thank you. It really is. I hope our Charlotte community is very proud of that facility. It's truly one of the best in the Southeast. And
it's right behind Presby Huntersville, right?
It is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And so we work very collaboratively with the hospital there. One thing I do want to mention is for Medicare patients that the unique thing about hospice care, it's a comprehensive service. It includes pharmacies, equipment, supplies, and basically for Medicare patients, there's no out-of-pocket expense or copay.
Okay.
And I think it's important that people realize that, you know, hospice care, particularly if you're a Medicare patient, finances is not a barrier.
Okay.
Because again, there's no copay, there is no deductibles.
What about DME equipment if somebody's needed a hospital bed?
That's all part of the service.
It's all part of the service,
So
even some of the smaller stuff, raised toilet seat, things like that, or no?
If it's related to the terminal illness, we pay for it.
Really?
Everything's covered.
Wow, because you get that question a lot. At least our patients do, yeah.
It is a comprehensive service. It's kind of a secret that people don't really realize how comprehensive it is and how the financial exposure for the patient is non-existent.
Right. So there's other hospices out there. Hospice and palliative care, I will tell you, is a well-known, high-quality hospice group. But tell us, in your own words, how you are set apart from some of the others out there.
Well, I think one of the things that sets us apart is we're a community-based organization we're not here, we're not going anywhere. We are embedded in this community. We believe that to our core that it's our obligation to serve this community and provide the absolute highest service possible.
Yeah.
We have a comprehensive level of service. We have an extensive after-hours team. If you need a nurse at 3 a.m. in the morning, our nurse will be at your house.
Wow.
We don't cut corners. We have a parallel to our hospice program and just an outstanding palliative care program. The ability that we are broad in what the services we provide. We don't say to someone, you know, that treatment's expensive, we're not covering it. We cover it. Right. That's just our philosophy. We don't cut corners, we don't hold back. If you need it, it's part of the care plan, you get it. I think just that commitment to the community that says, you know, we live here, we are treating our family members, we are treating our neighbors, we will settle for nothing but the absolute best in care.
Right, right. Well, that's really important to know. So I want to thank you, first of all, for coming on to the show, Pete. Really appreciate it. For the viewers that are out there, if you need to reach out to the organization, they call
704-375-0100.
Thank you. Or the website, which will probably be posted on the show tonight. Yeah. My name is Phil Koch, Pete Brunnick from Hospice and Palliative Care of Charlotte. Thank you from Channel 21, servicing the Charlotte and greater surrounding area. We want to thank you for viewing tonight, and please view again.